Thank you for tuning in to Behind the Boost. Today we're speaking with Mike and AJ from Agency Coach. Enjoy the show. I'm Nic Padilla. I've got AJ Rivera and Mike Schmidt from Agency Coach. I'm excited to speak with you two. Now, AJ and Mike, I want to understand more about you guys because Agency Coach has been on my radar for a while. We've got some amazing partnerships that come from you guys, and the energy that you guys have is insane. But where did you guys grow up? Where are you guys from? I think that's part of that energy. Where'd you guys grow up? Where are you from?
Yeah, I grew up in Southern California, and AJ grew up here in Tucson, where we have our agency here today and operate Agency Coach from. Yeah.
So Southern California and Tucson. Yeah. How'd you guys meet? Where did this start?
So I came to Tucson because I was a high school kid with not the best grades.
Oh,
they weren't terrible, but they weren't the best.
Yeah.
University of Arizona takes a lot of people, and it took me, right? Thankfully, so came to Tucson, fell in love with it. Before graduating, I was playing in a band. I had met the girl who'd become my wife, and I had zero job prospects. As a web designer graduating in 2003 in Tucson, Arizona. So I had to create my own opportunity, right? So started the agency. And then probably about, 5 or so years into it, AJ and I crossed paths, which is an interesting story, and ultimately became partners later on and then launched Agency Coach. Yeah.
So you're one of those Californians that's leaving and ruining other states.
I set the trend early on before it was cool, So I think if you cut me, I bleed Arizona now at this point. So.
Okay.
And plus, I have 3 kids here, so I think that firmly establishes me as an Arizonan at this point. Right?
Oh yeah, once you have kids there, you're set. I think that makes sense. But there's some California drivers here in Utah, and you're like, woo, got some spice there. So you grew up in California, and then you moved out, and then AJ, are you from Tucson?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Tucson. So, unlike Mike went to college and then just jumped straight into business. And I kind of took the corporate route. I worked for Intuit, originally doing technical support for QuickBooks, but then moving on to eventually manage online communities for TurboTax and QuickBooks and Quicken. And, it was great. And I learned a ton kind of climbing that corporate ladder there. But I always felt like a really small cog in this huge machine, right? Not really understanding how the work that I was doing was really impacting things. And, I had tried to start my own agency kind of on the side while I was working at Intuit. I had a friend who was a sales guy, and I'm like, you sell it and I'll build it and we'll have this amazing thing going. And he had a full-time job. I had a full-time job. So it never really, we did a few projects and then it just kind of fell apart. But I'd always just had a passion for, web design and digital marketing, that sort of thing. And Mike posted a position that said web strategist here in Tucson. And it's funny because what he was really looking for was a salesperson. And if he would have put web sales or web design sales, there's zero chance that I would have applied for that position.
Really?
But yeah, I just, to me at that time, sales was like a bad thing, right? It was like trying to force people to do things. And I just pictured the car sales guy, that was my perception of what sales was at that time. And, but he was spot on because that's really the type of sales that we do, right? Is that we do have that consultative approach. People are coming to us with goals and desires. And, all we're doing is saying, cool, if these are the things that you want to accomplish, these are my recommendations and the strategy that I would put in place to make that happen. If you want our help with that, right? And so, he was right. At the end of the day, it was a web strategist position. I'm glad that I applied for it and took it, and we've done some really cool things.
And when did you guys start Agency Coach then?
Agency Coach started it kind of started having its first inklings of something happening, probably 2015 into 2016. But it wasn't really until 2017 where it's all right, I think we can make some money doing this and make an impact and turn this into a real business. Because at that point, the agency started in 2003.
Okay.
And so you figure by 2015, we had slayed a lot of dragons, right?
Yeah.
We had figured a lot of things out. We had an awesome team at that point. Built a lot of recurring revenue, and we started to kind of dance around the idea of well, what else should we be doing? And in fact, like I had handed off most of the responsibilities of the business at that point, even though I didn't quite realize it, to be honest, like because AJ was doing a bunch of the sales. We had some other sales folks that were working under him, handed off a lot of the product and service delivery side of things. And so I was kind of like in this like middle, like place where like some days I'd show up to the office and I would ask him, I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do today? Like, and like I would
do something. Just kidding.
yeah, he's like, get out of my office and leave me alone, right? Like, and so yeah, there was like just some creative play that started to happen. It happened and just kind of exploration. And yeah, there was a bunch of days where I just like kind of sat in my office trying to like figure it out. And it was actually a really cool place to be, but it was also like unnerving because I felt like I was like cheating or something, right? Like I'm supposed to have to do something, but I'm not. I didn't know what, and that's what birthed Agency Coach. And bit by bit, we kind of started piecing that together.
Dude, that's so cool. That's so cool. Here at Boostability, I have the opportunity of speaking with a lot of agencies, marketing agencies, hosting companies, different people who are trying to find a way to sell, understand their product stack, understand how to identify customers.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I run into a lot of people who have a lot of hopes and dreams that get stuck. And that there's nothing worse than seeing somebody trying to figure something out, but they don't even know where to start. But they're at least having the conversation, which so many people don't have. One luxury that I've had, though, is there's been some agency coach people that with, one introduction of, hey, speak with Boostability. And then they've got our sales support side where you call and introduce our staff. And they're just selling because they know how to identify customers. They know how to explain and pitch. We're going to have this SEO expert hop on the call, and we're going to talk about what's going on with your website and what your competitors are doing. And we take over and help sell. But I've never had the amount of knowledge and understanding of exactly what the next steps are with a smaller agency than agencies that are coming to us through you guys. And it is an absolute testament of what Agency Coach is. I want to know why, though. Like, where in the heck did you guys, how are you training these agencies to be prepared is one of my questions that I would have.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think like we love Boostability and partners like you because it's a big part of what we advocate for, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't believe that agency owners should be the ones that are doing all the work when they sell something. We feel like they should be leveraging a third party that's experts in this one thing and focus on continuing to grow the business. So many agency owners, they don't really own an agency, they own a job, right? Like imagine if a realtor had to build every house that they sold. They're not going to sell a lot of homes, right? They're going to get stuck in building all the time. And that's what we find is a big trap for a lot of agency owners is they'll go out there, they'll sell a project, and then they'll spend the next few weeks, building that website or doing SEO or whatever. And during that whole time, guess what? Nobody's marketing, nobody's doing sales. And so they're in this constant feast and famine mode where, there's periods of time where they have a lot of money coming in, they got these new projects, and then other times where it's like, gosh, I don't know when the next check's coming through, right? I don't know how I'm going to be able to pay myself or pay my employees or pay my bills. And that's never going to end unless you create an agency where you're not responsible for doing the delivery, right? Where you can continue to scale and continue to grow and continue to focus on sales and eventually step out of that as well, right? Like one of the coolest things was when Mike and I could see sales happening and projects getting delivered from beginning to end without us touching it, right? Like right now, our agency could double the amount of sales it has in a month. And it's not going to mean that we have to do anything for that, right? Because we intentionally set out to build an agency that can run without us. And I think a lot of agency owners, when they start an agency, maybe they have this vision of like, I'm starting this because I want time and financial freedom, right? I want to be able to work when I want to work and I want to have the money to do things I want to do and follow my passions. And then when they actually get into it, guess what? They're working more than they were working when they had a job, and they have more inconsistent, flow of cash than when they had a job, and they have all the worst parts of having a job and all of the stress of running an agency. And so we just help them to really fix all of that stuff, and a big way that we do that is something that we had to learn like way into running our agency, which is having a real focus on monthly recurring revenue. For a long time, I was out there chasing these big projects, trying to find a bigger and bigger website to go sell because I thought that the way for us to achieve financial freedom was for us to get huge checks, right?
Yeah.
But those were like one-time projects that came and went. And every first of the month, I'd have to go out there and find another one and another one. And it wasn't until Mike and I had our accountant run a report that kind of changed our lives. We asked her to run a report of like our top 20 customers for the past 5 years. And I was wholeheartedly expecting like this one huge casino that I sold like a six-figure website to be like number one on the list. And guess what? They were like barely in the top 20. And guess who was at the top? This orthodontist that had been paying us $2,000 a month for the last 5 years. And then a dentist had been paying us $1,800 for the last 2 years. A plumber that had been paying us. And it's like, we weren't even focused on those ones. Those were just kind of happening. And once we realized that, we changed our complete focus to targeting those types of businesses, stacking our recurring revenue to a point where we went into the month with all of our expenses paid, all of our bills paid, able to put money in our pocket. And that's when our lives changed. That's why we were able to start Agency Coaches, because now we could work on the things we wanted to work on instead of having to come up with what we would call Hail Mary campaigns, right? Like, how are we going to make all this money this month in order to support everything? When you're in that mode, you never get to really focus on working on the business or the things that we want to work on.
Yeah, that's a really cool story, man. It's cool to think that you guys now are doing the exact same thing that you guys did for yourselves now for other agencies, and you're teaching these agencies how to run, what to do. Mike, when you get these agencies that are now interested in learning about what you guys do, tell me. Like, I'm a new agency. I want to get some customers. I want to get that recurring revenue that AJ's speaking to. What are you trying to teach me, and what is your sales pitch? And if you guys have a good enough product, it sells itself.
Yeah. So AJ kind of touched on the idea that the whole purpose of what we do is helping agencies truly own their agencies. In fact, like our saying around here is own your agency, own your life, right? Too many agencies are trapped by the very businesses that they've created, trading their time for money, right? And it feels more like a job than it does a true business. And so they don't feel like they own their life, right? They feel like their job owns them. They're not hitting their revenue goals. I know that at one point in those early days, once we started focusing on recurring revenue, we kind of set a goal. We're like, where do you want to go? We're like, we want to have $1 million per year agency. And at the time I was like, okay, could we do it? It seemed scary. It seemed like a crazy goal. But what we realized is that if we could just chunk that down into smaller pieces, right, and start stacking, right? That's the whole idea. It's like I visualize it like Lego pieces, right? Every new client I have is another Lego brick that gets stacked higher and higher and higher to the point where we're reaching, $83,000 a month and then we have our $1 million agency. And like, so that was what we focused on. But there's 3 reasons why that never happens for an agency, right? Okay. One is that they have poor lead flow, right? Leads aren't coming in. They don't know where the next opportunity is. And as a result, they're stuck in this feast or famine business cycle, periods of time where they have lots of cash and they're excited and they're high-fiving and feeling like, the sun is out and the clouds are in the sky and, birds are singing and it's amazing, followed by periods of time where it's the deepest, darkest time of your life and you're not sure why the heck you're doing what you're doing, right? So poor lead flow is a big thing we see and a big reason people don't have that. The other thing we see, and a reason why people don't own their agency and own their life, is they have an awkward sales process, right? They're not closing deals consistently. Every time they interact with a client, it's a different process, like kind of making it up on the fly, or maybe it's something where like they feel like they're undercharging or not closing consistently, and it's really just it's not happening for them, right? Or it happens sometimes and then the weather changes and it stops happening. And most importantly, they're not stacking any sort of meaningful recurring revenue, right? Yeah. So poor lead flow, awkward sales process. And then the third piece is really key. A lot of agencies out there, they have doubt in their ability to deliver, right? And the thing about that, like if you don't believe that what you're doing is actually helping a client, right? Are you going to be good at selling that? I personally believe that if you're a upstanding human, like it's impossible for you to sell something you don't believe in, right? Or at least if you sell it, you're not going to keep that client very long. So if you think about it, I don't have any good leads, and my sales process, I'm being more of an order taker than I am being consultative and building my recurring revenue. And then on top of it, I'm not even sure if the stuff I'm doing is any good or if I'm doing it the right way, or it never seems like I'm getting and keeping the clients that I want, right? So like, could you see like the trifecta of that is like not a very good scenario, right?
Yeah.
Well, what people want instead, right? They don't want poor lead flow. They want always hot leads.
Yeah.
Right? And so what we help our members with is how do we install systems and deploy strategies that are helping you always have this tap of hot leads that is coming your way. You can turn it up, turn it down. And hot leads we define by, it's your ideal client, right? Yeah. Not these tire kickers, like the ideal client who like is a real business. Yeah. We take people through an exercise we call the real business profiler that identifies what a real business is. Yeah. And once you see it, you're like, oh, I want more of those, right?
For sure.
It's about automating relationships, right? It's about getting people to raise their hand, say, hey, Nick, I want your help, right? How much easier, Nick, is it for me to send you a lead of someone who's like, I already heard about you, I know what you do, and I want your help, versus them like knocking on your door or you knocking on their door and be like, hey, we're Boostability, we can do this thing.
Stay tuned for our next episode as we continue our conversation with Mike and AJ.